Good day, everyone. My name is Mr. Bamigboye. I'm a seasoned history educator and public affairs analyst, and I'm here to discuss the topic, a history of history, reinterpreting history through a different lens. Please enjoy the ride. 2 decades ago, growing up in the southwestern part of Nigeria, I got to love one man, Professor Wole Soyinka, Nobel laureate 1986. He was the man I could say in whom I was well placed. I love the stories, the panoply of inspirational writings, the dramatic poise, the finesse, the panache that driven his literature over several years. While growing up, I heard a rumor that this same man actually graduated from the University of Ibadan with a third class, with many telling me there was no need for you to be extra or super good in school to achieve what he has attained in life. I ran with this theory for a very long time. Until recently, I reached my eureka moment, decided to go beyond the rumor and ask the right question. Did Professor Wole Soyinka really graduate from the University of Ibadan with a third class? Alas, it had all been a ruse. A rumor driven so far and repeated for so long that it had become the truth. Of a truth, Professor Wole Soyinka attended the University of Ibadan, but got transferred to the University of Leeds, where he graduated between 1952 and 1954, summa cum laude, that is, with the highest praise. This example of my experience with the Professor Wole Soyinka story reveals something frantic and very, very pivotal, that when history or rumor is repeated over time, it tends to become the truth, except when you decide to take the extra plunge and ask the right questions. A peep into history will reveal several historical icons who moved from being icons to iconoclasts, and from iconoclasts, heroines, back to being villains. For example, Christopher Columbus. He was well known or well believed to have actually led the discovery and innovation of the Caribbeans. He was well known, venerated, respected, believed to have led so much civilizations, led to the discovery of several civilizations in 1492 across the Americas. From the US to Europe, he was venerated. Several public holidays were launched in his name. Textbooks eulogized and panegyricized this man, saying, "In Christopher Columbus we trust." Indeed, this man is the vanguard of civilization. However, from Dar Bala in Palestine down into the vast stretches of the Amazon in Brazil, a new unfolding, a new movement is coming up, saying, let's check out what Christopher Columbus indeed did across the Americas. The results were staggering. Mass destructions, killings, morbid depredations, depredations of several millions of Americans who were Africans, brought in chains, transported to Europe, and became victims of mass enslavements and deportations. Indeed, what Christopher Columbus did it change? Not at all. His story remains sacrosanct across time. What changed was the lens from which we viewed Christopher Columbus' story. We decided to look beyond the vast rumors that have stood over time, and we decided to go into the primary sources. We decided to apotheosize equity, justice, fairness over the idea of having a single individual conquering the world. Indeed, the Christopher Columbus story is salient for us. We need to reimagine history from a different perspective. That story that has been said over time, when reimagined from a different lens, gives us a completely different picture that tells us that our history should not be written by anyone. It should be written by us, based on truths from the sources, based from the right questions being asked, and based on the interviews of the subjects that were involved in this story. From Christopher Columbus, we go to our very own Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti, the very matriarch of political activism and feminism in Africa. Initially, she was seen again by the whites as an avant-garde or agent provocateur of chaos. She was believed to have disobeyed the patriarchal system that had been established in colonial Africa. From 1940 to 1950, Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti created the Abeokuta Women's Union that protested against unfair taxes that were levied on Nigerians and Africans during that time. Then she was seen as a villain, a troublemaker, someone who needed to be silenced. 10, 15 years ago, historians are looking at this from a different lens. That same woman, seen as a troublemaker, as someone who needed to be extirpated from the system, has now been seen as the rallying figure against the vestiges of patrilinealism, colonialism, neocolonialism, chauvinism, and every other isms that have permeated into our international lexicon. Indeed, today, we see Funmilayo Ransome-Kuti as a suffragette, the woman who led political liberation of Africa and who has brought feminism into the front burner when discussing national and international politics. Why, then, is this topic important at this time? The scourge of fake news. Fake news permeates our national and international system, from newsrooms to newsrooms. We continue to get inundated by stories that are not true, that distorts our view of reality, that distorts our conceptions of the past, and creates perspectives that pushes the blacks, that pushes the minorities, that pushes every other disadvantaged group into the back burner. Again, what has changed? Our views, our knowledge, our understanding of the past. How do we change our cosmopolitanism? How do we view these stories that have been said by our forefathers, the grandfathers, those who claim to have the conspiracy theorists who believe that, yes, there's a system in place that must not be distorted? Oliver Weiner's Forum, in their analysis of over 125,000 respondents, reported that over 80% of these individuals felt the scourge of fake news affecting them in the form of their mental distortions and all forms of social problems that have come in with their stories being told in the wrong light. It is important for us to know that as we move forward from this speech, that history is not just viewed from a straitjacketed provincial lens. History must be cosmopolitan. The next time someone tells you that the blacks were the inferior, or the blacks were the enslaved, or your ethnic group was not the most important, the question you should ask them is, who wrote that story? Who said that? When was it said? Why was it said? Where are the primary and secondary sources to substantiate these claims? I leave us with the eternal words of Abdurrahman ibn Khaldun, Arab sociologist and historian, who once posited, our knowledge of the past is as important and similar to that of the future as a drop of water is identical to another. Verily, verily, I say unto you, when we heed to this, to knowing more about how history is interpreted, and saying no more to accepting the past at face value, for then shall we attain the true state of Avicennaism. Thank you very much. Yeah.